Any of you that know me know I'm not very formal. Smile a little bit. My story is a little different than everybody else that's been up here. Everybody's had these tragedies that have happened that have brought them to the Lord. I'm here to tell you that my life is very different than that. I grew up as a little kid in a Christian home. My dad was Catholic, my mother was Protestant, so at 2 or 3, I was already in Sunday school. I was raised in a Christian family. I was going to Dad to Catholic church and going with Mom to the Christian church. So I was raised both ways, whichever way you want to do it. I was kind of a mixed up kid, but I had a lot of church at home. I had Christian neighbors, I had Christian friends. I had it all. I was raised thinking that I was a child of Christ the whole time I was raised. Many of you probably think that as well. And so I went to every Bible school that was in town because all my friends had different churches, and I got to go to my vacation Bible school, and I got to go to their vacation Bible schools. And so my life wasn't so tragic. It was a Christian upbringing. We said grace before every meal. When I went to stay with my grandma, she got down on her knees every night and prayed. In fact, until she was in her late 70s, she got down on her knees every night to pray. I had really good examples. I went to church camp. I heard about Jesus. I never thought I wasn't a Christian. I never understood that I wasn't a Christian kid. When it came time for pastor's class or communicants class or whatever they called it in the church I was in, I went through the class in 5th grade. And they talked about Christ, and I listened. Well, I'd already heard all the stories before. It wasn't any different. I had been sprinkled as a baby in the Catholic Church. I had already been baptized. But at the end of the pastor's class, they baptized kids again. That was the way you did it. You went to the pastor's class, you sat through all the lessons, and then you got baptized. My dad wouldn't let me. And boy, was I angry. It's just what you did. And he wouldn't allow me to do it with all the other kids. And I didn't like that very much. It's just how you did it. So we had words over it, which I didn't argue with my dad because I was a good kid. I was the kid that did the right stuff. I was the kid that minded. I was the oldest of all the cousins in my family that lived locally. All my cousins were 4.5 years younger than me or younger. I babysat. I was the one that was responsible for all of them. I was the one that the aunts came and brought their kids to my house, and I looked after them during the summers. I babysat all the other kids in the neighborhood. I was the one that everybody looked up to. I made the good grades. I did everything right. I was that kid. You know the one. You know, the one that has all the responsibility, the older kid in the family. I was that kid. So, and people called me Smiley at school. You can't imagine why that would happen, right? So anyway, as things went on, this rift was there over this not being able to get baptized when all the other kids were doing it. And I already felt like a Christian anyway, so something didn't seem right about it. So then came a little more time, and I was 14 years old, and a lay witness mission came to our church, which was a group of people, just regular people like you and I. And during that visit, there were people in the group that were in charge of the youth. I have a piece of fuzz or something. And they talked to the youth group, and they asked us to do this exercise. And they asked us to write down every sin that we could recall ever doing in our whole lives. And so I started writing. And I started writing more. And I asked for another sheet of paper. And this was notebook paper. And I asked for more paper, and I was giggling. And I asked for more paper, and more paper. And this was taking up a lot of time because I was asking for more and more paper and writing in columns and single spacing. And I asked for an awful lot of paper. Just say I don't remember how many sheets, but it was several sheets. So when we were done doing this, we actually, and I was still kind of laughing about it. It was kind of funny because I asked for a lot of paper, and here I was the good kid. Remember, I was the one that did everything right. I minded my parents for the most part. I mean, I got spanked when I was little and got in trouble and sat in the corner some, but I was the one that was afraid of doing anything wrong. And I took on guilt like there's no tomorrow. Still probably do. You know, when they call over Walmart speaker and say, check aisle 9, I'm going like this looking, and I've never done it, you know. I'm the one that goes up to the front and says, I found this without a label, you know, that person. So I got done writing down all these things, and then they asked us to fold up the paper and nail it to a cross. Well, that was like a punch in the stomach to me, because then we were done with it. We didn't have to worry about those sins any longer. They were gone. Jesus took them away, and it finally made sense to me that they weren't mine to worry about any longer. By the grace of God, Jesus took all of those, and they were gone. And for some reason, that click happened. Now, here I was growing up thinking I was a Christian kid all this time. There wasn't anything that I had done that was really horrible, but all of those little things, it just made sense all of a sudden. So whether you're 14 or you're 50 or you're 80, maybe something just hadn't clicked yet. Maybe you've been sitting there thinking you've been a Christian all this time and something just hasn't quite clicked. I'm here to tell you, Jesus takes that stuff away and erases it, and it's all gone. You don't have to account for all those anymore. You don't have to keep track, because His grace is sufficient to make us totally free. Now, since then, a lot of things have happened to me that I swore would never happen. My favorite verse, and I'm going to share it, is Hebrews 11:1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I live by this. Since then, all kinds of things have happened. Jesse's sermon this morning could not have been more appropriate, because since then, my family kind of split. When I started dating my husband, they didn't like him. He had dated a friend of my aunt's family, and they already thought he was not a great person for me. I was separated from my family for 4 years. I thought, goodness, whatever I do, I'm going to protect that from ever happening in my family as my children grow up. Well, I thought, well, at least I will never go through a divorce, because this is such a solid marriage and he's a Christian guy and everything will be fine. Ended up to be a very abusive, not so much physical, but mental relationship. Went through a terrible divorce. Swore that would never happen to me. No, I'll never be that person. Went through a horrible divorce. Raised 2 girls by myself. As my oldest got older, my ex-husband kind of pulled her to his venue, and I did have a separation of my daughter. Thank God He has worked out so many miracles in my life that He's able to heal relationships. He's able to make things new. He is able to fix things that you never thought could be fixed. And it's only through Him that I'm standing here today in one piece. I've had so many physical ailments, you'd never believe it. I look like an 80-year-old on paper, and I'm not. But I'm here to tell you that even as a Christian, things go wrong. But if not for God, they would be so much worse. And just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're free from all that. It just means you have another way to deal with them, and such a better way to deal with them. And I'd just like to leave you with the fact that I count all my blessings through Christ. And were it not for the strength that I have through God, I have become so much bolder. I wouldn't be standing up here today talking about him. I bow my head at restaurants and say thank you for my food. I pray with people at Walmart when they're ailing or hurting, because I have a boldness in Christ that I didn't have before. I go up on the hill and work with the ladies at Brookside because I think they need it, and because I love them, and because God's called me to that. I think that we all have callings that we can do, and if it weren't for God and all he's done in my life, I wouldn't have that. I thank you guys so much for being the congregation and the family I needed here. Thank you so much.